welcome to the Standard of Truth podcast, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I am your host, April Chapman, and welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be tackling a very crucial issue that strikes at the very heart of human dignity and the sanctity of life. As many of you know, or you may not know, but I am staunchly pro-life, and I am pro-life by biblical conviction. So because of my biblical worldview, being pro-life it's not political for me. It really is not. This is a matter of justice and righteousness. So today, I want to talk about why Planned Parenthood must be defunded. And we're also going to talk about how two Republican senators, not Democrats, are the ones who are standing in the way. So yes, today I am bringing all the smoke for two Republican senators. And let's go ahead and get into this topic. What is the issue at hand? Well, Planned Parenthood, they are often presented as a provider of essential healthcare services for women. You know, they want us to believe that they're this multi-million-dollar organization and that they make the bulk of their money doing pap smears. Well, no one believes that. And in fact, it is a well-known fact that not only is Planned Parenthood the largest abortion provider in the world, we also know that they've hitched their wagon to the LGBTQ agenda and allocate some of its budget to the transgender industry. Baby murder, selling baby parts, and pushing the transgender agenda are mainly what Planned Parenthood is about. However, despite claims that, taxpayer dollars don't directly fund abortions due to the Hyde Amendment, the reality is that funding for Planned Parenthood still supports the infrastructure and resources that enable the murder of unborn children, particularly Black ones. So, it is one thing for individuals to choose to support such an organization privately. Americans of all ethnicities are free to donate and give their hard-earned money to any organization that they see fit. But it is a completely different matter for the federal government to use taxpayer dollars, your money and my money that comes from citizens of all convictions, to support an organization that many Americans vehemently oppose on moral and ethical grounds. Dear ones, this should not be. But before we get into the meat of what I want to talk about today, let me give you guys some historical context. It is not a secret that Planned Parenthood, the brainchild of Margaret Sanger, has deep tentacles in the eugenics agenda.
In 1939, Sanger began what was called the Negro Project, alongside Black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell. This was the plan to have Black doctors performing on Black patients, to perpetuate the sterilization of Blacks who were deemed inferior, as many Black patients were suspicious of white doctors. Following upon Sanger's eugenics platform, disguised as giving women access to birth control, the ABCL became Planned Parenthood Federation of America in 1942, after birth control was no longer considered illegal, at least among married couples. During this period, Sanger had critics and supporters. The supporters even today claim that she condemned abortion, arguing that it would not be needed if every woman had access to birth control. What they leave out is that Sanger only opposed abortions if that meant not producing the best, healthiest, most intelligent from Caucasian couples. For Blacks, Jews, and brown-skinned people, as well as low IQ white people and those with birth defects, they were not to be allowed. This was what the Nazis adopted. Ironically, in 1966, Planned Parenthood began issuing its Margaret Sanger Awards annually to honor individuals of distinction in recognition of excellence and leadership in furthering reproductive health and reproductive rights.
Now, to truly understand why Planned Parenthood must be defunded, We need to look at its origins. It's important for us to know that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, has deep roots and was a known advocate of the eugenics movement. In fact, Adolf Hitler was so enamored and so interested with Sanger's tactics that he borrowed and learned a lot about eugenics and how to subjugate people and control populations from Margaret.
Margaret Sanger's rabid racism, anti-Semitism, and violent suggestions on eliminating all non-whites from American society endeared her to the eugenics crowd. She wanted an all-white, healthy, intelligent society built upon the concept of racial eradication years before Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were even a thought. In 1934, the Nazi Party adopted her radical positions, with Goebbels saying, "Margaret Sanger is the best National Socialist in America." In fact, the September 15, 1935 Nuremberg laws classified races according to an insane chart drafted by Dr. Wilhelm Stuckart and Dr. Friedrich Kritzinger. The official name was the Reich Citizenship Law and the Law for the Protection of German Blood and German Honor. These laws embodied many of the racial theories underpinning Nazi ideology, which they adapted from Margaret Sanger. These laws could provide the legal framework for the systematic persecution of Jews in Germany, who at that time were deemed a race and not a religion, and the eugenics behind them were taken from the world of Sanger. In fact, her theories and opinions influenced men like SS Captain Dr. Josef Mengele, the Beast of Auschwitz, and his associates, Dr. Karl Klauberg, Dr. Hertha Oberhäuser, Hitler's personal physician Dr. Karl Brandt, just to name a few.
Eugenics is a pseudo-scientific belief that seeks to improve the genetic quality of a population by excluding certain groups deemed unfit. Sanger's writings and her speeches often targeted minority communities, particularly African Americans, as part of her agenda. Consider this chilling quote from Sanger: "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
Covertly invest into non-white areas, invest in ghetto abortion clinics. Help to raise money for free abortions, in primarily non-white areas. Perhaps abortion clinic syndicates throughout North America, that primarily operate in non-white areas and receive tax support, should be promoted." The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. The masses of Negroes, particularly in the South, still breed carelessly and disastrously, with the result that the increase among Negroes, even more than among whites, is from that portion of the population least intelligent and fit. Blacks, soldiers, and Jews are a menace to the race. How are we to breed a race of human thoroughbreds unless we follow the same plan? We must make this country into a garden of children instead of a disorderly backlot overrun with human weeds. Eugenics is the most adequate and thorough avenue to the solution of racial, political and social problems. Negroes and Southern Europeans are mentally inferior to native-born Americans.
While some attempt to downplay or sanitize her legacy, those are her words, not mine. The truth is that Planned Parenthood's earliest mission was deeply intertwined with these racist and eugenicist ideals. And Sanger's influence, it was felt in the Black community when she decided to use the Negro preacher, one in particular, Martin Luther King, the Dr. Martin Luther King. She used him to push the idea of family planning on the Black community when this was something that we didn't even think about. This was not our thing. But she used his influence on the Black community, and she was so impressed with his ability to persuade and get Black women on board with such an idea that she bestowed upon him the very first Margaret Sanger Award. The fact that a preacher, an alleged preacher, an alleged man of God, would accept such an award is just diabolical and evil. But this video isn't necessarily about the Negro Project. We can save that for another show. Today, this show was about how the ideas of Planned Parenthood and its founder have not, how should we say it? They've not changed very much. They just have become more respectful with it, and it's become more socially acceptable for them to push their eugenics agenda. Today, the legacy of the eugenics mindset can still be seen in disproportionate numbers of Planned Parenthood clinics that are located in minority communities. Oh, please believe they are targeting Black folks. It is no coincidence that abortion rates among Black and Hispanic women are significantly higher than those of their white counterparts. That's not a coincidence. And no, this is not a healthcare issue. We're not going to sidestep this discussion by placing the concern on healthcare when I am telling you that they are murdering us by the droves. This is not a healthcare issue. It's a righteousness and justice issue. And it is one that demands our attention as believers. Dear ones, being pregnant is not a disease. And ending the lives of Black and brown image bearers with malice and forethought, which is called murder, that's the definition of murder, that is evil and it is wicked. And it's so evil and wicked and even racist. And we are effectively going to talk about it today, and we're going to uncover it in terms of the evil and wicked racist undertones and how we still can't seem to escape that today. Dear ones, American taxpayers, we are still funding Planned Parenthood. Why? Why are we still funding Planned Parenthood? Well, I need to inform you of this one political roadblock, or should I say two political roadblocks. These roadblocks are named Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Now, these two white women, continue to thwart efforts to cut taxpayer funding to this organization, and we're going to discuss them today. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are two Republican senators that are blocking, yes, I said blocking, they are blocking the defunding of Planned Parenthood and are blocking progress. When I examined the political landscape, I discovered what the problem was. Despite being members of the Republican Party, Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, they have been steadfast in their support of Planned Parenthood. And they've been for a very long time. Very long time. These rhinos, now you got to get called out. These rhinos who claim to be conservative are anything but that. And I intend to prove and demonstrate that to you today. Their consistent refusal to support measures to defund this organization has made them a critical roadblock in the Senate. Here's a little known fact. Every single male Republican senator has agreed to defund Planned Parenthood, which is the right thing to do. Even J.D. Vance, VP J.D. Vance is on board. But who? Who is in the way? not men, not Democrats, even though we already know they don't support any sort of pro-life measure. It is two Republican white women. They are the ones standing in the way and have a thorough commitment to funding Planned Parenthood, and we need to figure out why. We need to follow the money, figure out why is this the case. So, I recently learned that Planned Parenthood publicly honored Senator Susan Collins for her unwavering support of their mission. That's interesting. In a press release from Planned Parenthood, they praised Collins for her commitment to maintaining access to their services, which, as we know, include abortion on demand. If you're interested in reading this commendation, I have linked the full article down in the description box below, and you can read it for yourself. This public recognition should raise serious concerns for conservative voters who expect their elected officials to uphold pro-life values. How did these women avoid my radar? How did these two women avoid all of our radars? Well, I'm going to own up. I'm going to own up to the fact that I hadn't been paying attention as I should. And this is a sobering reminder for all of us to, just because somebody has an R behind their name does not mean that they share in your worldview. And it does not mean that they are actually going to plant their flag on the issues where you plant your flag. And so therefore, they need to be held accountable and you need to be paying attention. It is worth noting. It's worth noting, though, that there are currently no male Republican senators who support funding for Planned Parenthood. I am very grateful for that. I at least want to admit and congratulate them for taking such an actual pro-life stance. But every time the budget appropriation comes up, the men, they exclude a line item for Planned Parenthood. And do you want to know what these two female Republican senators do? Oh, they make it clear. They're looking and they're like, wait a minute. I don't see Planned Parenthood on there. And the senators are like, oh, yeah, well, we took it out. And their response is, well, if you expect my vote, if the rest of you senators expect to receive my vote on the rest of this spending, they just better go right ahead and put that line item right back in there. Right? They make it clear that if the rest of the senators expect to receive their vote on other things, they need to put that line item back in to the budget. Two women. The Senate as a whole has been unable to make significant progress defunding the organization of Planned Parenthood because of these two women. This is a prime example of how just a few individuals can wield immense power in shaping policy, or in this case, preventing necessary change, and how we, because we are not paying attention and because we assume that because they have a certain letter behind their name, that they are actually representing you and pushing forth the policies that you want to see pushed in the federal government. Well, now I've demonstrated that that's not the case, and we need to talk about it. We need to talk about why is it that two women who claim to be Republican go out of their way to make sure that those line items for Planned Parenthood are in the budget, and they do it under the name of, well, women, particularly, marginalized women, would lose access to key services if we defunded them. So we got to make sure we put it in there. My question is, you mean to tell me that there are no other places for women to get pap smears and mammograms? So because that is your argument, we have to keep funding them, knowing that Planned Parenthood is pushing abortion and knowing that Planned Parenthood is actively selling baby parts? Why is it that Planned Parenthood is allowed to do this? Why is it important for us to defund them? Defunding Planned Parenthood, it isn't just about budget allocations. It's about taking a moral stand. When the government funds Planned Parenthood, it becomes complicit in the atrocity of abortion. I don't want my money being used in that way. It sends a message that the destruction of innocent life is acceptable and even worthy of support. And this is why I have a problem with it. As a Christian, for Christians, the sanctity of life, it is non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable principle. Psalm 139, I quote it all the time, 13 through 16. He formed us. God reminded us that he formed us in the womb. Before each of us were known in the world in the fullness of time, he knitted us together, each of us in the womb. And he knows us intimately before we are born. Those are babies that you are deleting. Babies hiring medical assassins, being co-conspirators with the mothers to assassinate these babies in the womb by a medical hitman. And these are the women who are in the way, allowing taxpayer dollars to fund an organization that actively works against this truth. We compromise not only our moral integrity, but also the foundation of justice itself. So this is just one of many videos that I intend to do to highlight this issue. I wanted to name these women by name: Lisa, Murkowski, and Susan Collins. I know you enjoyed those seats and you didn't feel threatened that those seats were up for grabs, because before this election, there were also 2 male Republican senators who were also on board with funding Planned Parenthood. And so this is why we experienced so much resistance. But now those two have lost their seats and they're out of office. And now it's just you 2 females are the lone bulwark standing and all of the men senators. And right now, we got a Senate majority. The call to action is very simple. It's time for us to stand up and demand accountability from these legislators. I am a conservative, I am a Christian first. And to discover that these 2 Republicans have been the ones standing in the way of getting Planned Parenthood defunded is a problem for me. So now I'm about to be a problem for them. It's easy to say, oh, well, funding Planned Parenthood is necessary because of the pap smears and the cancer screenings that they offer. And so women would just be left with no other alternative. Listen, don't nobody believe that. These 2 women are not fooling anybody. It is clear that Planned Parenthood targets minorities for their services. I mean, these 2 senators, are they trying to tell us that they are racist? I mean, what else are we supposed to think? You want to continue to fund this eugenics agenda that you know is overwhelmingly and disproportionately harming Black communities. But I know you up in Maine. You're in Maine and you're in Alaska. And last time I checked, it wasn't a whole lot of Black people there. But you know darn well where those clinics target. You know where they target. They're targeting the women in my community, and now the Black American community is beyond the rate of replacement. That's a fact. So the question remains, are these 2 senators? They're not racist, are they? I mean, are they eugenicists like Margaret Sanger, or are they just bought and paid for and it only looks that way? Either way, it looks bad, but I mean, I don't know. I can't tell. I mean, it would be a shame. It would be a shame for the word to get out amongst the conservatives, the Black females with loud mouths like mine, that these 2 white women are taking money from Planned Parenthood, and this is one of the reasons that they are firmly committed to ensuring that they stay funded? I mean, why don't you just come out and tell us? Either you hate Black people so much so that you want to continue to see our numbers dwindle, or what is the other alternative? You're not pro-life, obviously, and you want us to primary and come after them seats. Because every male Republican senator has made it clear that Planned Parenthood needs to be defunded because Americans do not want our taxpayer money going toward this. And you just don't give a darn because you have no conscience. And the green and the campaign money that you're receiving from them is worth more than justice and righteousness. All I'm saying is that if you're firmly committed to ensuring that they stay funded, there's a reason for that. But here's what I do know. I won't be silent about this, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. Oh no, Lisa and Susie, I'm about to be a thorn in your side, ma'ams. Yes, I am here. And I'm not going anywhere. And I'm telling you, you don't want these kinds of problems. You do not want us to shed light on the fact that the womb assassination that is overwhelmingly disproportionately impacting Black folks, you're the ones pushing it. You guys, we need to reach out to our senators. We need to make sure that our voices are heard. Make sure you tell them that you need them on board with defunding Planned Parenthood because you don't want your tax dollars used to fund racist, evil, and wicked organizations. And as long as each male Republican senator holds the line, Miss Susan, Miss Lisa, your days of having your funding for Planned Parenthood just might be over because we now have a Senate majority. And technically, unlike in years past where we needed your vote, we technically, this time around, don't need your vote. And I think we should even primary you since you don't seem to understand that funding Planned Parenthood is against the conservative policy position. That is not our position. So I'm going to close with this. We fight these battles in the public square, knowing that God goes before us and we have truth on our side. This used to be a self-evident truth that you don't delete babies. And just like the slave abolitionists of the 1800s who cried aloud and didn't spare not, our mandate to end abortion now is just as significant. This is the side of history that you would want to be on. I do want to encourage you, though, that our hope does rest. Our hope rests in the gospel of Jesus Christ, who offers grace and redemption to all who come to him. And this stain of wound assassination on our nation, it is putting us in a serious crisis, and it's something that we need to repent from. Y'all, we got to sound the alarm. We need to put some pressure on Lisa and Susan and also on all of the other male Republican senators who are already holding the line, but we don't need them to waver and get weak. We don't need the lobbyists to get in their ear and offer them some money and then all of a sudden they get brand new and forget where they're supposed to stand. Make your voice heard. It is important that the other male Republican senators know where you stand. So, if you enjoyed this video today, I appreciate you at least watching. Like I said, I am going to touch on this topic in a little bit more in depth. I may even bring on some guests to discuss this issue because I don't think many conservatives knew that the reason why we can't defund Planned Parenthood is because of these two rhinos who are standing in the way. And so prayer and making our supplications known to God that, Lord, we want to defund this organization because we cannot continue to. It's one thing for individuals to support this and that's your personal sin. It is another thing for the nation to say this is something that we wholeheartedly support and we're putting money behind it. That's a level of judgment that I no longer want to be under. And so I thank you for joining me on the Stand on the Truth podcast. If you found this episode informative and useful or thought-provoking, please share it with others. And I want you to consider leaving me a comment. Let's keep this conversation going. I want to admonish all of us to continue to stand firm in the truth and that our fight for a culture, we want to fight for a culture that their hearts are changed by the power of the gospel and that they will value every human life. So until next time, you guys, grace and peace.